the Spot Track Podcast, talking sports contracts, the salary cap, and business of sports.
Today's edition of the Spot Track Podcast is presented by Authentic Audio Productions. Take your podcast to the next level. Content creation, consistent quality and professional services, brand promotion, more customers. What else do you need? You need subscriptions. You need great content. You need people that are coming back to listen every week, maybe even a couple of times a week, maybe even every day. Plan your shows out through Authentic Audio Pro, and you will become more successful. It's just a fact. We are one of those facts. Visit AuthenticAudioPro.com. My name is Mike Ginnitti. It is Monday, July 29th. It's a football week, not just here on the Spot Track Podcast, but in actuality. Preseason football begins Thursday. Training camps are open. Pads are on. Good Morning Football is back on the West Coast. It's all kind of started to smell and look like the NFL season. I'm sure your fantasy rosters are starting to take shape, right? It's keeper season. We're officially here. We made it. Also, tomorrow's the Major League Baseball deadline, so not so fast with a full NFL show, though quarterback contracts are always going to win the day. We'll talk Tua. We'll talk Jordan Love. We'll talk about some of the other quarterbacks who are under contract that can't stop being talked about when new quarterback contracts are signed. And we'll talk a few of the Major League Baseball trades, just a couple of the notable ones, because I have a feeling over the next 30 hours, we're going to find a few more we have to get to on Thursday's episode of this podcast. And we will do that. So just a taste of Major League Baseball at the end here. But of course, I was trying to get some good hard-earned sleep this weekend, and quarterback contracts kept keeping me awake. It's good. We have a lot to get to, and this is good content. This isn't manufactured content, right? This is the real deal. Breaking down these contracts is sort of the highlight of what I get to do for a living. And when you have two contracts that on the surface look and smell and feel kind of the same, but are completely different, it's fascinating, right? Because everything's team by team, player by player. I did multiple polls over the past few months, kind of testing the waters, right? Which one of these players, the Lawrences, the Prescotts, the Loves, the Tuas, which one of these players actually should get the strongest contract this offseason? And by away, the general population that follows us and interacts with us on social networks decided that Jordan Love was that player. It's close. I can tell you right now, cart before the, chicken before the egg. Trevor Lawrence, essentially, because of where he signed from, and I'll get to that in a second, got the better deal. All right. He is, for all intents and purposes, guaranteed 5 years and over $200 million from now through 2028, which sounds great. And it is great. And he's going to be 29 and he'll get to redo it at 30, and it hits all the notes. But the reason that's not the slam dunk best quarterback deal of the offseason, and I guess I should include Jared Goff, though. I categorize that one in a separate window because it's his third contract. He did have a year left. He's a veteran. He's a veteran of veterans, right? We're going to put Prescott and Goff sort of in the same conversation. And I'm absolutely giddy to see if Dak Prescott gets more in year one than Jared Goff got, which was over $80 million cash. And that's going to become relevant when we talk about Jordan Love's contract here in just a second. But back to Trevor Lawrence. I saw a lot of people downplaying the Lawrence contract, wondering why it had to happen. Why couldn't we just wait? I already gave you the reasons why they shouldn't have waited. All right. 3 years in the books. He became eligible this past December. This was the first opportunity for Jacksonville to pay Trevor Lawrence. Would you rather pay Trevor Lawrence at age 25 or at age 27? Now, I get it, right? You can wait. You can run through the franchise tag process. You can try to maintain year to year, like we've seen some quarterbacks do, right? Certainly Lamar, certainly Kirk Cousins, and for a moment, Dak Prescott. The problem is this. Outside of Lamar, which was kind of a Hail Mary at the final shot clock, they generally don't end well. So if the guy ends up being a great player, have you just fractured the relationship? It's probably a moot point with all of these quarterbacks right now. I've been preaching this choir for 2.5 years, and I don't think there's more evidence than ever that this position is just bulletproof. It's a fact. It's bulletproof. If you are worth even slightly above average to your team, okay, and if the options behind you aren't starting quarterback options, right? That's why we've been saying Dak Prescott has just ridiculous leverage. But if there really isn't a plan B this year, next year, for 3 years, you can kind of do whatever you have to do from a business standpoint as a quarterback right now. All right. There was really no reason that Jordan Love or Trevor Lawrence needed a new contract this offseason. Now, what Love did last year in his first full season, especially with the playoff win, was outstanding. And I think he's going to be a great player. And I think this young Packers team could be remarkably dangerous, if not this year, by next year. So it's looking great. But there was no need to rush it. The problem was there was no way in freaking hell that any starting quarterback outside of a rookie contract, and he signed a bridge extension to get out of that rookie structure, which was smart on his part, by the way. He got $5 million extra last year and got himself into a situation where he gained leverage, maximized leverage this year. There was just no way that a player that just did what he did and won a playoff game was going to live with $11 million this season, which is what it was. So he bet on himself, handed himself a little extra cash last year, and set himself up for this, which is essentially $140 million fully guaranteed. We'll get to his structure in a second. Again, those of you crapping on the Lawrence contract, and I know that feels like forever ago, but it's really not. It's part of this conversation, especially if you're an average salary guy, right? And my God, the $55 million per year number can't stop being talked about out there. At least for Love and for Lawrence, it's relevant because it's been signed within the same salary cap structure. Okay. So it's 10th and 11th, tied for 10th, 21.5 million percent or 21.5% of this current salary cap. We've seen better deals. We've seen worse deals. None of these guys that I'm talking about, none of them are the highest at anything. Let's put it that way. Okay. None of them. But all of them, for specific reasons, for different reasons, have elements of outstanding structure within their contracts. So for Lawrence, he gets to sweeten his pot right now. All right. In 2024, he was previously set to earn $5.6 million. He's now going to make almost 40. That's a huge difference. Okay. That buys him the ability to get a 5-year term out of this contract, which is not always what people want and not always what quarterbacks should be looking for, as many people are finally starting to come around to. Okay. I have a feeling that with Jordan Love specifically, yes, they were trying to wait on Tua's numbers so they could beat him, but also I guarantee you Green Bay was looking for more term than 4 years. Okay. So Jordan Love won that battle. Trevor Lawrence lost the term battle, right? He signed early, and as a compromise, he's under contract through to 2030, all right, and through 2028 from a practical guarantee standpoint. So he really cannot, at least on the surface, go to the Jacksonville front office until at least 2027, all right, and that's only halfway through this thing. It's going to be more likely that he's going to have to play out 5 years. Then they can rip it up before age 30. And if he's still their guy, it's an extension. If not, there's a walkout scenario at that point in time. And, he's trying to resurrect his career somewhere else. But that's the compromise. Okay. We're taking you up from $5.5 million to $39 million this year. in what should be year 4 of your rookie contract. You're going to get $37.5 million next year instead of a $25 million 5th-year option. And then we kind of plateau a little bit. That's the compromise. So it's great for everybody. But if Lawrence becomes great, okay, if he becomes an upper echelon quarterback, he's not there yet. By 2027, he's going to wish he wasn't in this contract anymore. That's just the fact. And we're going to talk about a couple players who are in that spot right now soon. All right, let's get to these new guys. I'm going to start with Jordan Love. And again, I have full article breakdowns on both Love and Tua live on Spotrac.com. Hit me up on that. I really like to do these. If you need more, if you're looking for more rankings, more understanding of the structures of things, how these bonuses work, just give me the feedback and I'll give you the answers. It's just one of those scenarios where I try not to write too much and have people doze off in the middle of these things because it's a numbers based report. But I'm always happy to answer questions on these things for sure. Jordan Love gets 4 years, $220 million new. That tacks on to the 1 for 11 we just talked about, which means 5 for 231 over the next 5 seasons. At 220 in terms of new money is 10th. All right. And again, that's because of term. Green Bay probably wanted to go 5 or 6 years on this extension. And Jordan Love and his camp said, no. We know what we're dealing with here. We know what kind of climate this NFL is in. We know what kind of streaming situation this money and the revenues you're going to bring into this league and the gambling, by the way. And this position is bulletproof. So we're getting in, we're getting out. And we're going to bet on ourselves to do this again in 3 seasons. So 10th in terms of total value, but this is by far the largest total value contract in the history of the Green Bay Packers. It was Rodgers a bunch of years ago at just over $150 million. So even for this short and sweet 4-year extension, these numbers are astronomical within the last decade, let alone the last 6 decades. Yes, at $55 million per year, he is tied with Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence at the top of that AAV list. You can hear the dissent in my voice. All right. We cannot treat every average salary the same way. We just can't. First of all, we're only talking about the new money, so we're not including the $11 million in that. Second of all, $55 million against a $255 million salary cap is not the same as $55 million against $224 last year. So Joe Burrow's $55 million is much stronger than Trevor Lawrence's and Jordan Love's, but they're all $55 million. I'm not going to deny that. I'm looking at the numbers the same way you are, but from a percentage standpoint, from a practicality standpoint, all 3 of these contracts are extremely different. And I just want to make sure everybody understands that. Okay. You can get to $55 million with a hell of a lot of fluff. Like Tyreek Hill got to $30 million because of a hell of a lot of fluff. And every wide receiver contract didn't reflect Tyreek Hill going forward. Right. It's why everybody else is now 34, 35 million. And some players are still in the 20s. Tyreek Hill's 30 is fake. We know it. Okay. And that's been happening for a long, long time. It's happening a little bit less now. And it's happening a lot less with quarterback contracts. All right. So 231 over the next 5 years for Jordan Love. 75 million of that comes by a signing bonus. This should not surprise you if you follow the Green Bay Packers. This has been their system, their structure, their trend forever. And 99.9% of Green Bay Packer veteran contracts only have a signing bonus as guaranteed money. They do not guarantee salaries. They do not guarantee future roster bonuses, things like that, except for big quarterback contracts of late, Aaron Rodgers, and now this Jordan Love contract. So yes, that $75 million is historic. It is the highest signing bonus in the history of the NFL, overtaking Jared Goff at $73 million a couple weeks ago, right? And Lamar Jackson at $72.5 million last offseason. So it's a growing trend, okay? And it's a growing trend. Why do it this way? Why hand somebody a gigantic signing bonus when you know the year 1 cash isn't going to be able to be matched the rest of the way through? Well, players love it. Agents absolutely adore it. Why? It's cash in hand. And by the way, this $75 million bonus will be paid in 2024. 25 now, 25 in October, 25 right around Christmas. That's ridiculously great. Okay? Ridiculously great. That's a huge win for player and agent. But as you know, cash in hand, the salary cap spreads out over 5 years, so 15 per year for the next 5 years, keeps the salary caps fairly tenable, and we'll get to that in a second. So that's why they're going this route. They have the money. They are okay handing their quarterbacks this money, and they would rather have salary cap flexibility than a little extra cash in their pockets. That's what the owners and front offices have been saying. It's becoming a trend. Dak Prescott always goes this route. Russell Wilson always went this route. Aaron Rodgers always went this route. It's going to become a thing with most front offices. All right. Versus the Eagles and the Saints and some of these teams that continue to do the 4 or 5 bonus structures. It's just personal preference. You want to do one big one up front, or you want to do 3 or 4 over the course of the contract and give yourself some options with it instead. The guarantees, again, it's not just the $75 million signing bonus. It's just over $100 million fully guaranteed at signing. That's the 2024 salary, the 2025 salary, and the 2026 salary along with that bonus. So again, they broke structure for Love. They broke structure for Aaron Rodgers in the past, but that's it. Okay. All these other contracts, Xavier McKinney, Josh Jacobs, all the big ones we've heard about this offseason, it's just a signing bonus and then a pay-as-you-go structure. That's just what Green Bay's been doing since Andrew Brandt was sitting in that chair, and he's still let you know about it, by the way, on X. So it's just a thing with them. And the Steelers, for the most part, have done the same, except for a couple of quarterback contracts and for TJ Watt's deal. But there are teams that still really follow rigid structures, despite, the unbelievable changes that the business of football have overcome over the past 20 years, excuse me. So it's 100 right now, guaranteed at signing for Jordan Love. Another 40 hits the books next March. That'll be 2026 compensation. Another 20 hits the books in March 2026. That's 160 million practically guaranteed, and it's basically all through the next 3 seasons. Okay. Some of that is 2027 compensation. It's 20 million, in fact, of 2027 compensation. But to be frank, that's not a big enough number to be considered a stable salary. There are teams, I'm looking at you, Rams, who would pay that as a buyout to get off of a quarterback that they don't believe is their future. So we're going to make this a 3-year contract with our potential out after 2026, despite there being a $20 million guarantee sitting in 2027. Does it mean that that's a practical potential out? No. And I say in the article that despite me drawing that line through his contract on Spot Track, it is much more practical that Jordan Love gets 4 years out of this contract. However, that $20 million that sits there in 2027, could be a buyout, as we discussed, or could be the start of another extension. And that is something that teams that don't guarantee much future salary love to do. They love to keep churning extensions, right? Keep things fluid, keep things active, give them the ability to go forward and forward and forward, and not be stale and not be too stuck in the weeds, like we're seeing some teams get to a point right now. So that line of demarcation, that potential out after 2026, is kind of threefold. All right. It's maybe a buyout process, maybe a total walk plan for Green Bay, maybe the beginning of negotiations, right? That they won't actually finalize until 2027. Again, much more practical that this is a 4-year, not a 3-year. Or if Jordan Love's the best quarterback in football, not named Patrick Mahomes, and I don't know, is that crazily inconceivable with the weapon set they're putting around him? No. Then he puts his foot down. And, the athletes first camp, who have tons of experience with putting their foot down on contracts, they say, okay, 3 years is enough. Right? It'll be 3 for 140, 143. that's a good enough start with this contract. Let's rip it up and start over and turn 2 years left into 6 years total on another 4 years extension. He's going to have that kind of power. The quarterback position is not going to weaken anytime soon. And if he's playing at a high rate at age 28, look out. So yeah, the numbers all look great right now today. The $100 million guaranteed at signing is much more than I thought he would secure from this team after just 29 games. So that's a bit of a surprise. The 160 practically guaranteed over the next 3.5, 4 seasons is actually even more than was reported. So I'm not sure what the misinformation is there, but I believe the original report was 155. It appears that is incorrect from the numbers that we've been able to locate here. So the 160 is a good, strong, practical guarantee, again, for very limited time and for a player and a team that generally don't hand out a ton of early vesting guarantees. All the rankings are live on this piece right now on SpyTrip.com. The 160 is 9th. The 100 guaranteed is also 9th at signing. It's a top 10 contract pretty much on its surface on every level. The 2-year payout of cash is 6th. The 3-year cash payout is 5th. Those are really nice numbers. Okay. And it's front loaded basically through 2026 for all the reasons we just talked about. He's a quarterback. He outkicked his coverage last year. The Packers' structure with high signing bonuses was always going to have front load 2024. And he gets a nice $51 million payday in 2026, just as that line of demarcation is being drawn. Here's your cap hits: 20, 29, 36, 42, and a fluffy 74 that will never see the light of day for one reason or another, as we've already laid out here. In this piece, my closing paragraph is called "A Win for Trust the Process." I think you might be able to understand what I'm saying there. This was a terrible draft pick until it wasn't. And all of a sudden it's not, right? Aaron Rodgers still hates it. He wishes that they had gone a different direction with the selection back in 2020. There was a moment, there's no question in my mind that there was a moment that they felt like they 100% screwed this thing up because Rodgers had back-to-back MVPs. The team was really, really outplaying what the roster looked like on paper. And then they just had to cut bait. They just decided Rodgers is starting to decline. There's an injury side to him that is probably not going to go away. And oh, by the way, we know that's now to be true. And we're just better off cutting our losses on a great Aaron Rodgers player, getting some compensation back as they did from the Jets, and rolling with Love and hoping to God, fingers crossed, that some of the things we've seen in practices actually pay off. And they hit the nail on the head. It's probably an entire year later than they wanted this to happen. And I think they would admit that at some point. Maybe not yet. It's still new. It's still fresh. But it's here. All right. It's here. I thought the way they treated the 5th-year option decision, which came right on the heels of trading Aaron Rodgers, right? It wasn't just, okay, this guy's gone. Now we can slowly start the Jordan Love conversation. No, by May 5th, they had to decide, is this guy going to be here fully guaranteed through 2024? And the bridge extension was really nice. Again, Love crushed it. He made an extra $5 million last year and now $79 million in 2024. But I thought the way it was handled from A to Z, and obviously it worked out, so hindsight is 2020, but the way it was handled was creative, was smart, and it was reactive. Okay? They were not proactive about this. The only proactive thing about the transition from Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love was drafting Jordan Love. Okay? That's the biggest swing that the Packers took. Everything else just kind of played out in front of them. All right? And I guess the bridge extension should be considered proactive by the Packers. Even though it did really give them a free out in 2024 if he was a disaster last year. They were betting on the fact that they knew better. So trust the process is rare in the NFL. It's rare in 2024 in any sport. I mean, my God, kids getting drafted in Major League Baseball might even be called up September 1st this year. We're rushing everything, and To some degree, I love it because I think it's better for brands. But this just feels like the way it should be done. Let the kids mature. Let the kids grow up. Let the kids fill out, right? Let the kids vote. And then we'll see what they can do on the football field. I know. I sound like the oldest MFer in the world right now. But it worked, and I want to give credit to it. So that's the final paragraph. You can read the whole love breakdown right now on Spotrac.com. Let's talk Tua. Couldn't be a more different dynamic situation and a more different dynamic structure. As you can tell, all right, everything about Jordan Love is going up, arrow up, trending forward. Sky's the limit. We don't even know where this kid's ceiling might be because these rookie wide receivers, are now 1 year fresher, 1 year more experienced, possibly healthier. It just could be an absolute explosive offense with Love running the show. And Tua sort of had the reverse happen to him. Okay, he kind of limped into things, had a real rough first couple of seasons. Then the head injuries set in. There's just so many black marks on the resume. And there really aren't that many over the past 12 to 18 months. It's tough not to remember what he's gone through. And there's the Alabama stuff, and there's a lot. There's a lot. More than, can be forgotten. More than he can overcome right now without absolutely winning the whole damn thing. And Miami's approach hasn't been, we just got to develop this kid and make him better. Obviously, that's happening, and he is. But their approach has been, let's just load this roster up with protection, with options, with whatever we can do to offset the fact that A, he might get hurt again, or B, he may be compromised, or C, he may not be a truly elite quarterback. Because all those things may be true. And I think even Dolphins fans would agree they probably are true. He's injury prone. He's not naturally going to be elite. He may never develop into elite. But I think any above average quarterback with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Raheem Mostert playing like he's playing, and the A-Train, who is now 1 year more developed and hopefully healthy, and a solid offensive line that did take a couple of hits this offseason. So we'll have to see, that'll be a watch party for sure. But Miami has not been shy about this. Let's put it that way. The front office has done absolutely everything possible to buy themselves a successful Tua Tagovailoa. And that isn't just handing him a contract. It's handing a lot of other people contracts and then eventually getting to the point where they want to keep Tua under contract now for actually 3 years. Okay, this is a 4-year, $212.4 million extension. That's the new money. That's the new years. So again, this becomes a 5-year contract. Good for the quarterback, good for the agent, good for the Dolphins. I think everybody wanted this one. I'm not sure the Dolphins were pushing too hard for more term. All right, unless it was fluffy. It's 5 years. It's $235.5 million over those 5 years. He's making around 43.1 this year on a, I guess now modest $42 million signing bonus in comparison to where everything else is going. And it's a single bonus structure. All right, truly. Jordan Love's contract has some options that they can take or leave later in the contract. The Dolphins love to do big old roster bonuses in March and big old base salaries all the time, which essentially become option bonuses. Okay. We can keep them as salary. We can keep it as a single bonus, or we can convert it to signing bonus and use our proration to benefit us, which certainly they're going to do as long as Tua is playing well. Okay. And that's the genesis of my contract breakdown on Tua Tagovailoa, as you can read right now. Everything about this contract is 3 years. So after 2026, unless it feels exactly like it does right now, which is he is still an above average QB1. There's not really a better plan B for the Dolphins. And it just makes sense to continue to throw him back out there and try to change the pieces to see if you can find the right chemistry, to find the right grouping. Unless that's what we feel like after 2026, I don't see a way in hell that this contract remains in 2027. I just don't. Again, Love practically could be a 4-year contract because of the $20 million guarantee and a couple other things. But this one, either the walls are going to completely crumble over the next 3 seasons, or we're just going to be at a point where let's just keep doing this. Let's just keep doing this. Let's just keep doing this. I don't imagine he's going to mature, develop into a slam dunk. We've got to rip this thing up and add $25 million a year to it, because we're going to be in the 70s with quarterback contracts in 2027. I don't think that he's going to get to that point. And by the way, that's not a slight on him. Excuse me. It is a slight on him. It's not me saying that directly about him. I'm reading the Dolphins. Okay. Tom Brady didn't need wide receivers because Gronk was a future Hall of Famer in an hour and a half, and Brady was a Hall of Famer in an hour and a half. Okay. So they could take their liberties elsewhere, knowing those 2 players were going to elevate everything. That's not what we're reading from the Dolphins. Okay. Tua is not elevating that offense. He needs an offense that can elevate him. So I don't think it's unfair to say that everything about his career to date, the Dolphins roster construction, and now this contract, which is structured as an absolute black line after 2026 at 3 years and $152 million, says we're willing to keep going with this for a little while, but then we're going to have to do something about it. And that do something about it could be 1 more season or rip it up and start over. Here's the guarantee structure. It's 93-1 guaranteed at signing. That's about $8 million less than Jordan Love received on his 4-year extension. But it's 167 with practical guarantee. However, that assumes he gets to 2027. I have to do it that way because technically speaking, it is an early vesting guarantee. All right. $3 million of 2027 locks in 2026. $17 million more locks in March of 2027. So there are early triggers, but not big enough, not early enough to really dictate that 2027 is an actual season. I think it's interesting that both Love and Tua have $20 million triggers in 2027. That's fascinating. So there's a little bit of congruency there. The difference is Love gets the $20 million trigger in 2026. Tua only gets $3 million of that in 2026. So they can walk away and hand him that check and basically wipe their hands clean. Now, there'll be a little bit of dead cap, as there always will be, especially after they do a little bit of converting next season when there's a $59 million cap hit, and they're probably going to have to play a little bit with that. Again, though, it's 3 for 152 until it's not. So, yes, there's 167 in the guarantee box. That's assuming the $17 million in March of 2027 vests, and we're not going to assume that for practical purposes yet. Here's the cap hits. I mentioned one of them there. It's $9.5 million this year, which is considerable savings over the $23 million 5th-year option he had. $22 million of savings. 59.5 next year probably gets converted. 63.4 in 2026 probably gets converted. However, that's 3 seasons from now. We'll have seen 2 more seasons of Tua and the Dolphins. Maybe Tyreek Hill is on his way out at that point in time. And maybe some of the defensive players have been turned over as well. We have no idea what that team's going to look like at that iteration. By keeping things as base salaries, it's a $54 million base salary in 2026. The Dolphins have given themselves the opportunity to say, okay, we know that's going to be guaranteed. All right, we're going to have to pay it to them or trade some of it away or, whatever our options may be at that time. But we don't have to convert it. Right? We don't have to convert it. If we know that the end is coming, that 2026 is going to be Tua Tagovailoa's last year with the Dolphins, right? Kind of like what the Giants and Daniel Jones are going through right now internally. If they know heading into March of 2026 that this is it, there's just not a future for this relationship, they can keep everything intact. They can keep his $63.4 million cap hit, which, against a $300 million league cap isn't going to be the worst in the world. You convert other players that you feel better about, that have futures with your team, and you take this one on the chin. And it reduces the dead cap that you have to deal with in 2027 dramatically. So everything about this contract says, yeah, we know all the things you're saying, fans, on Twitter and on socials and out loud and at bars, that, we don't feel great about giving to $100 million guaranteed right now. We don't feel great about it either. That's what the Dolphins are saying. But we're going to do it because we don't have a better plan B, because we have a roster that we think can win the division and maybe even more. So we're going to do this to keep him happy, to keep him from holding out, to keep the team chemistry and whatever the culture is intact. And that's what you do. Okay? That's why you do these contracts when you do them. Because the longer it gets, right? I'm trying not to say Dallas again. The longer it gets, the more tension between fan bases, between players, between agents, between front offices. It's the tension that you can't avoid anymore. Okay. 20 years ago, you could avoid it. Everybody just did their own business behind closed walls. Everybody's business is now public, and I'm raising my hand because I run a website that tells people how much everybody gets paid in sports. Okay. I'm part of the problem. But tension just continues to grow day by day, day by day, day by day. And if Tua is not paid, and if you're forcing him to play on that fifth-year option, and free agency or a franchise tag is waiting, he's probably not showing up. Okay. Because he's done at least enough to warrant an extension. Not a top of the market extension, but an extension. And if not, are you ready to deal with the constant questions? Because every single week, or every single interception, or every single multi-touchdown game from Tua is going to be reflected upon the fact that he should have been paid, should not have been paid, will get paid, is now going to have to become the top paid quarterback in football. Every week, again, I'm looking at you, Dallas, it's going to become a money conversation, which is great for me, but it's not something I see have to happen to players. That's a terrible life to be living. Every time you hit your locker, you're going to have to turn around, put your face in a microphone, and talk about a contract you don't have right now. That's all gone away. Okay. So whatever drama now comes out of the Miami Dolphins, it won't be because of this. And this is, maybe the biggest talking point that you can get to, the quarterback contract. I think they've handled it well. They've given themselves a very clear out. They've given Tua, I think, enough money, certainly enough money. He signed the dotted line to make him happy for the next 3 seasons. Again, 3 for 152. That's a stronger cash flow than what we have for Jordan Love right now. All right. Jordan Love's going to make more money on his contract, and he will get more money going forward, in my opinion. But the compromise for shorter term, shorter first year pay, minuscule 4th year triggers, that $3 million versus Jordan Love's $20 million, is he's going to make a few million more over the next 3 seasons, even if the wheels are falling off and they're going to have to cut bait after 2026. Again, the full breakdown with all the incentives, my thoughts, more on this potential out in some scenarios, the cash flow, all live on SpotTrack.com, and a nice tidy article. Again, if you need more, at SpotTrack on X, at SpotTrack on Facebook, all the works. Happy to answer questions, happy to help people understand how this stuff works as much as humanly possible. Let's talk some baseball quickly and get the heck out of here on a Monday. Again, I don't think we've had the trade yet. It sounds like the White Sox are ready to be that trade, whether it's Garrett Crochet and Lewis Robert or both, whether it's more. Is Tariq Skubal going to leave Detroit? The Orioles have to be active here, right? I think the Mets aren't done. I know the Braves aren't done, unfortunately. And I don't think the Yankees are done. But the Yankees are at least the team to talk about right now. They acquired Jazz Chisholm Jr. from the Miami Marlins, who are completely fire selling alongside their state colleagues, the Tampa Bay Rays, who now actually hold the lowest tax payroll in baseball, below the Oakland Athletics. I didn't think it was possible, but the Rays never seem to amaze us one way or another, and they have gone that route. So the Marlins give up on really their flashiest player, sending him to the Yankees. He's immediately starting in center field for New York as of yesterday. $903,000 left on this salary for 2024. That's what the Yankees owe him this year. But there's 2 more arbitration years ahead here. So this is not a rental. They gave up 3 notable minor leaguers, 2 of which I think were within their top 20 in terms of prospects. And the Marlins get what they want. They get some salary relief, certainly going forward, and 3 minor leaguers that they can try to develop into more value for their franchise in the future. Chisholm Jr. is a nice piece for this Yankees team that needed a boost offensively, and not just from a home run hitting player. Okay, they were kind of a one-trick pony in that regard. This is a guy who, I think with a few other players on this roster, can bring small ball back to the Yankees. And I'm not sure that's what they're looking for, but I think it is what they need, at least as one piece. They still need relievers, and I do think they need one more bat, but I don't believe that Brian Cashman is willing to hand away the amount of minor leaguers it's going to take to do that. So we'll see just how active this team remains. The Mets have been more active than the Yankees, but this is the biggest fish, at least right now. What the Cubs have done is interesting with Isaac Paredes. That's a multi-year control player as well, and they gave up one, and Christopher Morel right back. So it's kind of a swap for swap with third baseman there. That's a notable trade for a team that probably isn't going to make the playoffs this year, the Chicago Cubs, and they know it. And they have publicly come out loud and said, we're not really looking to develop our 2024 roster necessarily. We're thinking about the best approach to start our offseason for 2025. This is a good start. All right. This is a very good start. And they may not be done. All right. They traded away a reliever, brought back some minor leaguers that they're hoping to develop quickly for their bullpen. And like I said, the Paredes swap, that's a player we had on contenders, not fringe playoff teams thinking about next season already. So the Cubs coming in and sweeping that one away from Tampa Bay is a really nice move, but just not an immediate move. Other trades, obviously relievers are dominating the conversation right now, and they always will. It's just the nature of the animal right now with what teams believe they need and actually do need going forward. Though I'll say this, most of the contenders out there, and if you look at the standings, you'll understand who I'm talking about, need starting pitching. The problem is this, and I thought Jeff Passan was excellent on this yesterday on ESPN. The price to acquire a starting pitcher right now is not worthy of a 4-month rental or a 3-month rental, or even really a 1.5 year rental. Some of the players that are being floated out there. It's astronomical what teams are asking for. And this is why NFL trades never happen. And this is why even the trade deadline for the NBA has sort of been watered down. Most teams just say, give me the world to get rid of this player early, or just wait until the offseason and we'll talk again. And maybe we can all come to a better understanding. But we'd rather have 3 or 4 more months with a great player to try to at least keep some fans in seats, keep some activity in our business, or move on from there. I think some starters will go, but I don't think the amount of starters that should go or that contenders need to be moved will go, because teams are just not willing to overpay anymore. We're not going to see that blockbuster holy S move in July. Maybe in the winter, but not in July. So I don't think we'll have too much major activity. I think, unfortunately, maybe from a position player standpoint, the best players have gone. Like I said, maybe Lewis Robert is mixed in with this Garrett Crochet trade that I think is a slam dunk at this point. And there's a big time starting pitcher moving, by the way. And it sounds like the Braves are the favorites at this time. But it's going to be a lot of relievers and a lot of bench players and a lot of names that, the non-close MLB follower won't really know. But we'll have all these salary prorations live on Spot Track as soon as they happen. I've been tweeting these things out with full details that include financials. So not just this year's salary, but what does it look like going forward for every player. And Dan Soman's been doing a ton of work on not only the draft picks from this past June, but also dealing with some of these prospects, getting them in our system so that we can evaluate their jump from A-ball to AAA right to the majors as quickly as possible and as thoroughly as possible. So I would say 99% of the names that you're hearing in these trades are already in Spot Track to some degree, have signing bonuses, have some sort of history, financially speaking, and just how quickly they can progress to their team control years is what these teams that are trying to acquire players right now are hoping for and relying on. So all that's being tracked on Spot Track, on the MLV views across the board. Tax payrolls are updated. Cash payrolls are updated. We'll continue to do so over the next 18 hours as the MLB trade deadline comes to a head. For Scott Allen, my name is Mike Ginnitti. Thanks for listening to this edition of the Spot Track Podcast.